Hi, I'm Samantha.
Hi, I'm Amy.
And we are members of the Rural Justice Network. We are an organization that believes that rural America has been silent in the face of injustice for far too long. And today we are talking about worker exploitation and labor movements in America. So when we think of America, a lot of the times we think of the multiculturalism and extensive different things, different varieties of life, different cultures. The liveliness of American cities such as New York feels pinnacle American. Rural America is like the country. It's where the rednecks live. It's small town populations, county fairs, small town heart. Everybody knows each other. We got each other's back. So there's a lot of wonderful, amazing things happening in rural small town America. Unfortunately, there is also a lot of misinformation and bigotry, and we do not believe that that's who rural America is. We just think it's the loudest people. So we are here to fix that. What is the October labor strike? So striking in America, there are some strikes. There is an uptick in striking across America right now, including general strikes, hospital strikes, teacher strikes, all fighting for lots of different things. Basically, exploitation. Workers are being asked to do more than is healthy, than is safe, and what their dollar amount is worth. So what we're first going to talk about is minimum wage. There are 40 million Americans currently living below the poverty line. Minimum wage, the federal minimum wage has not been raised to keep up with inflation and the cost of living. So in theory, if the original minimum wage was created so the person could work 40 hours a week and survive, not live extravagantly, not just buy food, but survive, have a home, have a house, have healthcare. That number has not kept up. Many states, including Massachusetts, have continued to up their minimum wage, not quick enough, but have continued to up their minimum wage. But the federal minimum wage, and somebody can fact check this for me, I believe is still around $7 an hour. I just want you to think about how much you make and think about if you could survive in your current living situation on $7 an hour. They've done the math. You can't. So currently, because of that, based on where the poverty line is and where you would be considered living comfortably, there are 40 million Americans living below the poverty line. And realistically, the poverty line is significantly lower than what anyone of us would consider living comfortably. It means you are fed and housed pretty much exclusively, because healthcare is not a guaranteed right in this country. Moving on, we go to the next slide. So the federal minimum wage, like we talked about in Massachusetts, has been increasing. It is still not kept up specifically with the cost of living and inflation, but it is doing better than a lot of other states, as Massachusetts is in a lot of areas. But the federal minimum wage has not been raised since 2009, and even then it was not raised appropriately. We have this habit of raising the minimum wage after the fact to catch up with a previous statement on inflation. And that also has a lot to do with employment. So we're going to go to the next slide. Unemployment versus unemployment. We hear a lot that people are staying on unemployment because they're making more money there than at their jobs, and how that means unemployment is too much money. What that actually means is that unemployment is calculated based on how much unemployment will never be lower than the cost of living. If you're making more on unemployment than you are on employment, the employer is paying you poverty wages. You couldn't, what that means is you could not physically live off of 40 hours a week for what you are making. So unemployment being up is actually a sign of people not being able to afford to work. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't want to work. The pandemic should have shown us, if anything, that everybody wants to work. Nobody wants to be in their house.
At the moment, as of July 2021, we have 8.7 million Americans that are still unemployed.
And that is for a number of different reasons. There are pandemic-specific reasons, health-based reasons, because COVID is not protected. Various different issues surrounding COVID, because it's so new and because it's so different, are not protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So a lot of employers, in addition to not paying their workers enough, are also not providing sufficient safety measures, making it physically unsafe for many people to go to work. And that's in places that it wasn't physically unsafe previously, because as we know, many jobs in America are physically unsafe to go to even pre-COVID. Up next, we are going to talk about the debt crisis. So we're not getting paid enough for what is considered the average household in America. We are also, add to that, in a massive debt crisis. The average American is over $90,000 in debt, largely due to student debt, which is a lot to do with loan companies lobbying the government in order to encourage people and provide programs to insure loans through federal government programs, meaning that students are taking out more loans than they realistically could ever pay off. $90,000 on, like we just talked about, that federal minimum wage is practically impossible. That coupled with the fact, we're going to pause for a second and just talk about the fact that the minimum wage was calculated not only on the concept that you could work 40 hours a week and survive. It was also the concept of the 40-hour work week was created when you were expected to have what was the equivalent of a stay-at-home maid and childcare provider, i.e. the stay-at-home wife. So the 40-hour work week in and of itself has been deemed unsustainable for two adults in a household to also keep a house clean, keep everybody healthy, happy, and mentally healthy as well. And speaking of health, as we continue on, Medicare for all. So another way that workers continue to exploit people is that they do not provide sufficient health care. Medical care in this country, sorry, we pause for a second. Medical care in this country is not a guaranteed right. We do not have a system that is federally, well, now we do, Obamacare, which a lot of people do not like because it's got the word Obama in it. But it is actually the ACA, which is the Affordable Care Act, which means that every American is guaranteed to access to healthcare and health insurance. But the mere existence of health insurance bars many people from healthcare. For example, your teeth. You need your teeth to eat, to function, to frankly look respectable, unfortunately, in a world of professionalism. And they are not covered under the Affordable Care Act. They are also not covered under most employer-based health insurances. And that, even with employer-based health insurance, it is a continuing battle to be able to pay for basic health needs. Couple that with lots of places like freaking Hobby Lobby that are claiming religious exemption to doing things like providing birth control to women, which, as we just discussed, is the forcing of women to have children, thus the perpetuation of the stay-at-home mom, wife, etc. Women who are having children that did not intend to have children is not only a labor issue, but also an intersectional feminist issue.
So this also ties, a lot of these things tie together. So Medicare for All ties back to the slide previously about debt. Medical debt is something that is huge in this country and also brings people or keeps people in that poverty line. At this point, 18% of Americans hold medical debt that is in collections.
So that's not even debt that's just accrued. That's debt that has gone so long that was unable to be paid that it's now you got people calling you about it, which is just insane. We are literally going into debt for the mere act of trying to survive. Let's really think about that.
I mean, I have medical debt because I was one of those people who went into the hospital and they went, we don't know what's wrong with you, and did all of these tests, and now
that weren't covered by insurance.
And now
she had health insurance.
Right. And I'm still paying for it years later. Not
to mention the addition of the cost of, let's talk about how employers aren't providing that medical care in terms of reproductive rights, in terms of birth control. Then people are having unplanned pregnancies that their health insurance, they cannot afford even via their health insurance. And then they lose their job because they were pregnant and had a kid, because in this country, there is no guaranteed parental leave at all. And there is absolutely no guaranteed paid parental leave. And that is the thing, even in some of the best states where you're like, oh, my job has paid parental leave. I live in Massachusetts. That's actually not a Massachusetts state law. Your employer is just giving you that. Even as employees of the city, the only reason we have parental leave is because of our union. It's not. I looked it up the other day. You can look up paid. Amy's fact checking me that paid parental leave is not guaranteed in the state of Massachusetts.
It is now. but it's very little, and it's right
as of January. Okay, so
it's like
just
very very recent.
So this is the point.
It's the PFMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act.
So as of this January, it just got passed, which is still like insanely behind the curve.
But there are certain things because of our union, we actually don't get that. Like there are some ways to go around things. Granted, like some things are because different things cost more but
this is a great example of why we need a labor movement in America, is that even previous to that, we work for an organization, we're gonna leave it at that. I guess I'm a teacher if you're on my TikTok. That has a very strong union that has given us these things because they stand by us. Unions are extremely important because it is the best way to have our voice. I, as a single worker, quitting my job does not mean anything because I am replaceable. Even if it's at the expense of children, they will replace me with someone underqualified. However, I just want you to think about a number of people in this country who are just average workers, completely average workers. If all of those people made a demand or quit their jobs or even stopped working for a singular day, the economy would literally collapse. We are more important than they are. But they are continuously, and I hate this term of like this insane they up there. I'm talking about the ultra rich. I'm not talking about your uncle who has $2 million of net worth. I'm talking about the ultra rich, the top 1%. You can literally look it up. It's like 139 names on the list. So if your name's not on the list, congrats, you're unaffected by this. So the top 1%, the ultra rich, the politicians in power, and the corporations who are lobbying those politicians in power. The specific people I just listed, are continuously trying to break up unions. You don't try to break up and pass laws against things that you do not consider a real threat. They are afraid of what happens when we realize we have the power. And all of these things are things that we should and deserve. Speaking of corporations, so corporations not only exploit us and our work and our time and our health and our families, but they are also exploiting our planet. There is a trend of trying to fix climate change by recycling, by the individual consumer reducing their carbon footprint, which I do not deny is you should be doing those things absolutely as an ethical member of society. However, there is a specific list of 100 corporations that are responsible for more than 71, or maybe exactly 71. Actually, either way, approximately 70% of all of the carbon emissions in the world. So even if every individual American had like a 0% carbon footprint because they recycle everything, their clothes are all bought sustainably, all of the above, 70% of carbon emissions would still exist, which is not a large enough reduction to save the planet. So they're exploiting our time. They're exploiting our monetary value. They are exploiting our health. They are exploiting our families. They're exploiting our safety, and they are exploiting our planet.
And a lot of these things, so like very specifically to what you just said, the term carbon footprint isn't even like a real scientific term.
You're not wrong.
To start with, it's a BP marketing campaign to make individual people feel more responsible for like the turmoil of the earth. So it literally was a marketing campaign to make like the individual person feel more responsible to get rid of climate change, when in all reality, it was just shifting the blame to who like really has, like, what did we say, that's 70%.
Right, which is a recurring theme in America where corporations and the ultra rich create a crisis and then shift the blame and the responsibility to the average American. Student debt is a great example of this. There were debt companies and banks that were lobbying the government, allowing students to take out significantly more loans than they could ever anticipate to pay back, thus increasing the cost of college because kids can get more money, so let's charge them more money. And then it becomes this concept of like, well, I paid back my loans, they have to too. It is also our individual responsibility. If you don't, you're lazy. Amy, you just gotta stop eating that avocado toast. Get it together. So all of the above it's this concept that corporations and the ultra rich are exploiting people and making it their responsibilities. Teachers are a great example of this. They have landlords and property managers have completely decimated the ability to have an affordable housing situation, and then somehow made it the school's responsibility to find those resources and help those students make sure they're not being put in homeless situations. This is a continuous cycle. They're exploiting the tagline here is they are exploiting your time. They are exploiting your family. They are exploiting your safety. They are not giving you the things that you deserve, even to just survive. And then they're making it your responsibility. They're blaming you. You're lazy if you're on unemployment, despite them paying you less than you would on unemployment. Plot twist, we do all go to work to get paid. I know it's shocking to some people. They're like, why aren't you working for the sake of working? No, I do not feel your restaurant is my family, and I do not feel obligated to keep them afloat. I feel responsible to keep my family afloat, which means looking out for us first.
I actually have a quick story that I can use.
Anecdote.
Yeah. So
Create
I worked in a fast food business for a very long time. And I actually was talking to one of my old coworkers, and we were talking about how they went home and someone in their family was like, oh, like no one's ever home anymore. And it was very much where I got to bond, saying that there were many times where my friends got upset with me because I chose to go to work instead of hanging out with my friends, making those connections, doing any of that kind of stuff.
Which she'd been doing since she was a child. Let's remember.
Literally.
This is not something that started when she was an adult.
Yeah.
She was a child who was working for that money.
And so we both really bonded over this fact that we had people in our personal lives saying that we are putting way too much time into our jobs.
It was
and
me.
then
I told her
and
that.
then we really thought about it, and it was like, I really said that there were full times where I was 2 hours late to things I needed to be at because I was working off the clock. I was not getting paid and was still there working, helping, getting things done because I felt this weird obligation that I needed to help that. But in the long run, in the reality, I was hurting all of my
everything else.
Literally everything else in my life, all of my friends, all of my connections, all of my mental and emotional health. It was awful.
The reality of the situation is that we have normalized in this country things that are so exploitative and are actually violations of the UN's human rights. The right to housing is literally a human right, but America has just decided that it's not. Things like taking your work home. Every moment you are taking your work home, you're working for free. It's not in your contract. It's not asked of you. Teachers, this is a huge one for us. And people think like, oh, everybody has to take their work home. Exactly the point. Why are you working for nothing? Your time is valuable and you deserve better. You on your own can't get better. We have to work together, which is why labor movements as a totality are important. That wraps up our slides. I think we're going to do some questions and just kind of a little bit more discussion moving on. We are going to do some more live streams moving forward about exactly what we can do. You're like, okay, great, labor movement. What are we moving, when, and how? There are definitely some incredible things in the works. You can also Google labor movements in my area. I know there are a lot of hospitals striking. Please don't strike over the COVID mandate, though. That's like not why we're striking. We're striking for like pay and safety. There are nurses striking for pay. There are teachers all over the country striking for better working conditions. We personally work in a building where the roof is falling down, as do most teachers. Better working hours, better healthcare and other forms of insurance, all things that people are fighting for. So if you do feel like you want to get involved today, don't wait for us. Go Google it. We don't know where all of you are specifically located, but it affects everybody. And frankly, rural America, quick touch on this because this is like our main demographic and we really feel passionate about this. We're both from rural America. All the people on our team are from rural America. It's where we were born and bred. Rural Americans are exploited at insane rates. What farmers work versus what they make, if you like calculate it hourly, it is disgusting. We exploit our farm workers. Rural populations tend to have significantly more fast food workers. rural America is often forgotten about because the cost of living is lower. People are like, oh, they can afford to live off of that, but you shouldn't have to, is the thing. You shouldn't have to. That coupled with the fact that even if you have health insurance, medical attention is harder to get there because of like deserts of, you know, lack of medical insurance, food deserts, all of these things contribute. These are all corporation-based forms of exploitation. So I think that kind of wraps it up. I think we're gonna actually do some questions.
We don't
Question mark?
So
Great.
we're actually just gonna kind of go through like a couple very quick points of very specifics on how to get involved in between this video and our next video. So just some of the kind of general things are follow us on our social medias and
Rural Justice Network. If you are also here, I am, what is my TikTok name? It's Rose Laney, Rose Laney. So if you're on Facebook, you can follow me on TikTok and I'll be posting more stuff about it. And if you're on TikTok and you want to follow the organization Rural Justice Network on all of the other forms of social media, Facebook, Instagram, I believe we even have a Twitter. We will also be posting information about that and other ways that you can get involved.
yeah, so we'll just be sharing anything else, any other groups or organizations that we know of that are doing some great work. There are just certain things like look up the unions in the job that you have. Figure out if
you're in a union, get involved in that union.
Yep, share that kind of stuff. Help other people that you work with get involved in the unions.
If your corporation, organization, or workplace does not have a union, make one, organize one. They're gonna tell you it's illegal. It's not.
It's not. We've almost done it. So
they're trying. They're really trying to shut down unions. Right to unions, but they haven't done it yet.
Get involved in some mutual aid organizations. Kind of even just a quick Google search of the town you live in or surrounding. Yeah, exactly. Make sure to register to vote and to stay informed in the stuff that's happening locally and even a little bit more broad than that, but especially locally because we all kind of forget about our small town stuff, or even if you're in a city, like that stuff is very specifically affecting your workplace and your quality of life.
If you can shop, generally trying to avoid corporations, go to those small town businesses, like the mom and pop shops, the ones that like Uncle Dave owns, and you know that he's treating his, I don't know, his like clerks and cashiers, you know he's treating them well. Go to those places. Any dollar that you can spend there helps them and takes a dollar away from a place like Amazon. I know it's hard. I know it's convenient, but it's necessary. I think that's all we got for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them. I also have a Q&A thing on my TikTok, or post them on our Facebook. We would love to answer any questions or provide anybody with any resources that we can.
We also will be taking this video and kind of splitting it into chunks and being able to post it on the rest of our social medias as well. So
it will be rewatchable.
So
please, get involved. Find out what's going on in your area, because I promise, even if this is the first time you've ever heard of it, there are people there organizing. Even if it's 5 people sitting on Zoom trying to organize in rural America. Throwback to when this group was that. So have a wonderful day. Thank you guys so much for coming and listening to us rant about how you deserve better, we deserve better, and we're gonna get there someday, somehow.
Yeah, and please follow up for more.